Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to get the commissioners meeting started. It's 1 o'clock, so we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance if you care to join us. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we only have a single item on the agenda, RDA discussion. I'm going to start, or just hand it off to Commissioner Stefanogle.
Sure, thank you. I just want everybody to know that I have called a special meeting. I've asked Mr. Kaiser, Mr. Schrader to come again and go over the RDA. I have questions, and I'm assuming the other commissioners do as well. So if Mr. Kaiser could start, I'd appreciate that.
Thank you for the time to come back and speak again. Obviously,
Thank you.
we want to make certain on behalf of the RDA, if there are questions that you have about the RDA, your RDA, that we're answering those questions, and certainly stop me at any time to have those discussions. I would like to say that that we did send an email out recently announcing that the website is back up and working. We had some troubles, it got hacked. That website's back up. It is almost up to date. There are some documents, some final documents for 25. Our audit is certainly going through right now with LWG at the state. When the State Board of Accounts approves that audit, which will happen sometime in April, we'll actually post that audit also. So we are getting closer to that transparency question. I think so. I also mentioned that at the last Board of Directors meeting for the RDA, we had packets of information regarding 2025, which we distributed, made available to the members of the public that were at that meeting in order to make certain that we were trying to be as transparent as possible with the documents, which included financial documents, board minutes, with other filings that the RDA has to make, different than other government agencies. And the RDA has a specific set of rules it has to follow. So that information is out there, and it will be back on the web, up to date. It is now, it's available. So that's been a little bit of a sore spot. I know it's difficult. We don't have much of a budget, and it's not technically required to have a website, but to make things easier, the website is back up again.
Okay,
So
that was one of the questions. Thank you.
yes. So I did want to talk a little bit, and there's just to be clear, the RDA was formed in connection with the discussion about the north-south transportation corridor. And back in 2017, when that question came about, was how is DuBois County going to continue to address this question? There are other documents out there that talk about how long DuBois County has been dealing with the issues of US 231 and its increasing congestion on 231. Those are articles in the Herald. We've distributed those articles the RDA has to members of the public. Some of those are posted in places, but literally since 1957 or 1959, I don't remember, there have been issues about 231 and what the traffic issues are. And as recently as 2003 and 4, when there was plans, 25 years ago, plans to build at that point the bypass around Jasper and Huntingburg, there was funding in place. That funding got used by the governor at that time in order to complete I-69. So the question that is for DuBois County with respect to the issues is an age-old question, one that DuBois County has continued to try to address, and it is an expensive question. And it's a difficult question because the solution that was decided back then 25 years ago, and the solution that was decided by the Tier 1 study that was completed, that this county in part paid for, stated, and the Federal Highway Commission agreed, that a new terrain road is the proper solution to our north-south logistics issue on 231. So it's not something the RDA decided. It is something the RDA, at your request, at the request of the other member organizations, which would include the County Council, Spencer County, the city of Jasper and city of Huntingburg. Those organizations pooled their money and pooled by vote. They all passed ordinances to form the RDA in 2017, appoint members in 2018. And in May of 2018, the RDA formally got together as a group, board met, and went forward again at the direction of the ordinance, which was a single purpose to study and try to determine what the issue was, what the resolution was for north-south traffic. That's not something the RDA itself can do, but that's something that NDOT does. And at that time, it was estimated the cost would be $6 or $7 million to conduct that study. NDOT didn't have the money in its budget to do that, but which was a very novel idea that the local community would raise the dollars to pay for the study, that NDOT would hire its contractors, which it normally does. It hires a consultant. It then did what it normally does procedure-wise. It ran through the procedures in order to identify and hire a consultant, which turned out to be Lockmuir. That study unfortunately got interrupted by COVID. It took much longer than you would expected. But at the end of that study, when it was completed, which was one of the obligations the RDA had, was to work through that study and complete that study. At the end of the study, which was paid for in part by public funds from the city of Jasper, city of Huntingburg, and DuBois County, and private funds paid by businesses in DuBois County, it decided that we did need, that is, the solution to the north-south issue was a new terrain road. The second part of that, following federal procedures, is a tier 2 study, which would say, well, we know now you need a new terrain road. Where should the road be located and what type of road should be done? The RDA advocated for and was successful in obtaining NDOT to move forward with that tier 2 study to complete the identification of the road and the type of road, and at the cost of NDOT. So this county and the cities of Jasper and Huntingburg, Spencer County did not have to spend additional monies to fund the tier 2 study. That tier 2 study is currently underway. Where we believe there'll be a preliminary decision about the location and the type of roadway in August or September, sometime in late summer, early fall this year. After that preliminary decision gets made, there'll be public hearings about it, and it will then take approximately another year for federal highway and other agencies to incorporate all the comments and things that happened before you get to a record of decision sometime in 2027. So that I think is in part, what the RDA was formed to do, and that is to investigate, identify, and help determine the traffic solutions that are going through. The second part of that question will be, the actual construction and funding will happen, which is beyond the RDA's position to do that. So the RDA is very close to finishing at least this initial request that its member organizations did. I would expect that absent COVID, which everybody for the loop, this would have been completed already by now. We're on an extended period of time, practically because COVID took 2 or 3 years and things shut down, and government agencies didn't work or function in the same way for several pieces of that time. So I would have thought by now we'd be done with the tier 2 study, but we're not. So, but we're very close. And in the meantime, the RDA is operated, I would say, as efficient as it can, in the sense that, we've not come back to any of the member organizations to request dollars. We've continued to do the things. And I think what you have in front of you is a solution to the north-south traffic issue, which has been approved by NDOT, which is approved by the Federal Highway Department. As the final construction, as the final plan, that's still to be determined. So that study is ongoing. So, but we are very close in the sense that we're within 2 years of finding out, what that final plan will be, within a year of the preliminary plan. The plan will be the plan where that road will be located and the type of roadway we have. If it's a divided 4-lane, including the interchanges, there's ongoing discussion about overpasses or at-grade intersections. Those are all information that Lockmuir is meeting with different folks, community members, citizens, engineers, businesses in order to determine the traffic flow and what the best intersection type will be in the safest way to continue to flow traffic. Now, there are, I would say this, there are a lot of other questions. I'm telling you the top pieces. There are certainly a lot of other questions about the locations of bridges and roads that are, roadways and frontage roads and all those pieces. So there are a lot of other things that are being discussed at the same time in order to make certain that the construction of this road is as successful as it can be, both for the road itself and for the citizens and businesses that are going to need and use this road.
Right. Understand.
I'd also like to say that, there is certainly opposition to this roadway, and there's opposition to every roadway. There's not a road been built that somebody wasn't opposed because there are damages, and that's why the system works the way it does. Because if we had to get unanimous consent for a roadway, there would be no road built. So, we understand, and I think everybody has to take into consideration that there are people that are opposed to the road, and that's expected. But the opposition is asking DuBois County to withdraw from the RDA for the reasons that it believes that for some reason this stops the construction of the road or stops the project. And I think the expectation is that, to be clear, if DuBois County withdraws from the RDA, that doesn't stop the construction of the roadway. That doesn't stop this project. In fact, though, it'd be very ironic that at the time, DuBois County most needs the RDA as an advocate, that it would then decide not to use the RDA to assist it. That doesn't mean that in any way, shape, or form that DuBois County shouldn't have direct conversations, negotiations with NDOT and Lockmuir and all those folks. Absolutely. It wants to be at the table. It should be at the table. That should be the other member organizations. That also means that having a partner, having an advocate is an important part of this. It could be the largest infrastructure project in the history of DuBois County. And to believe to take that on themselves doesn't make sense. And so the RDA is a no-cost, low-cost advocate, for DuBois County and its members, and it always has. So I say that to you because I think it's clear that, the RDA has a role to play. The RDA has been important to where you are now. The success of where we are now has to do with DuBois County coming together, saying, hey, we have a problem with 231. What do we do with that? How do we do this? Getting NDOT's attention, and NDOT coming and recognizing, yes, 231 is problematic. It needs to be resolved for the continued growth of this community. And the idea is, the expectation decision was that, a new terrain roadway needs to be built. So, having said that, I think it's important to make sure that when you're making these decisions about the RDA, you're making it, looking at for the greater good for our community and for all the citizens of DuBois County. Abraham Lincoln said this: you can fool some of the people some of the time, all the people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time. And I'm just going to call a spade, because there are a lot of people who have gotten up this podium, and I'm not sure what they're saying or what's being said. That there's a public, you can have your own opinions. But the fact of the matter is that there has been plenty of information provided that identifies the benefits of this roadway and the need for this roadway. And the reason we need additional infrastructure for this piece of it. Anybody who's looked at the report, some people said they read the report, and I hope you read the report. But when we have 20,000 cars a day running down the road, when Lockmuir has said up to 1,700 semis or trucks will be taken off the road with the construction of the roadway, there are plenty of facts that talk about this. We were in Spencer County the other evening, and we had a conversation with some of the Spencer County Council, and we've had conversations with the commissioners. They were very plain that there are plenty of people in Spencer County that no longer drive to DuBois County because by the time they come through the traffic, they can go to Owensboro faster. So, those are unsolicited comments to piece of that. So, the fact of the matter is there are things going on with our traffic? Do we live with the traffic issue? You know, I think the fact of the matter is that, you know, we're not going to continue to live with it. If not, we're not going to have the same opportunity to grow as we have in the past. This isn't the RDA's, just to be clear, that the RDA didn't make the decision that we needed a roadway. This was, you know, a decision by a study under federal guidelines approved by the Federal Highway Department. So these are the experts that have made this decision that said, you know, the solution to the traffic issues, the interstate level traffic we have on a narrow 2-lane road is the construction of a new roadway. We are, so, Commissioner Stefano, we proposed a resolution which would make a recommendation to the DuBois County Council that DuBois County remain as a member of the RDA. As you may remember, the way the RDA statute is set up, and that is that it's the council, the legislative body, that votes to decide whether or not you join or not join. It's this executive branch that appoints the members of the RDA. So it's not within your power to say whether or not the RDA, the DuBois County remains, but we're proposing that you pass a resolution recommending to the council that DuBois County remain as a member of the RDA.
Interesting. When does the RDA expire?
It's already dead.
The RDA has an initial term of 8 years.
8 years.
There are provisions within the statute allowing after the 8-year period, members to withdraw or to re-up. You know, that is to continue as members. It is silent as to what happens if you don't leave the RDA or you don't agree to continue. You know, say, you know, positively you're going to continue. We've asked the state government to write an opinion about this issue. We have had verbal conversations, advice or guidance that said, you know, that this is there is an initial 8-year term, that if you don't withdraw or you don't positively say that the RDA continues and your membership continues, you don't automatically default out. We don't have that in writing. We've asked for a written opinion about that. We expect to get that written opinion. I don't have it yet. And so the state has said they're working on it. We're going to get it to you. It's a novel question. Nobody's asked them that question before. The statute is vague. It doesn't positively say. So there has to be some legal interpretation about that position. So I say, Commissioner Stefano, what it says is that if you're going to, you know, when you get to the end of this 8-year period, or close to this 8-year period, you know, not earlier than 18 months, not later than 12 months, you have to give notice one way or the other. What we understood in the conversations legislatively, that when RDAs were getting funded, they wanted to make certain that if they undertook long-term projects that took more than a year or two, that people were committed to the projects, and they were also contributing funding, that they were, you know, committed to that funding for the period of time, that they weren't, I would say, forum shopping, but moving from RDA to RDA, because there are different RDAs in some areas that are adjacent to each other, and you can only belong to one RDA. So they didn't want people joining an RDA and then maybe seeing there's a better deal or a better opportunity and moving to another RDA, leaving that RDA without an important member or funding opportunity, which would hurt a project that, you know, was already started. So the idea was that you had to commit to 8 years. Yes.
I guess my next question is, can we withdraw from the RDA at any time?
Well, that's another, yeah, I think you can withdraw from the RDA at any time. I think that there is language saying, giving notice and time frame so that the RDA can absorb or, you know, take action in order to, whether it was an ongoing project. So that's why I think there's a time period that says, you know, not more than 18 months, not less than 12 months. So that there is time for the RDA to adjust to changes in its membership. But I think you could give notice, yes. I think that if DuBois County decided to withdraw, they could withdraw. And at least our understanding and kind of talking to the state right now at this point is that even though there is a period of 8 years where there's a decision point, I think you can make additionally the decision point at some other time too. a year from now or 2 years from now that says, hey, we're giving notice to withdraw. After they, that's not 100% clear. We asked that question too. That says you can withdraw or join at any period of time. And so we've asked that same question to make certain that to the extent the statute's not clear and you decided not now, but a year from now or 2 years from now, could you give notice and does that same procedure apply?
So from my understanding, Huntingburg and just Jasper City Councils have agreed to support, you had said that on Monday, to support this RDA, correct?
Yeah, I've not talked to all them council members, but I think there are certainly, because there's some council people that are, concerned, but there are council members that are definitely in favor of the road and the construction. So I think that's important. I mean, the difficulty is this, right? And that is that we remain in a heavily congested community that is looking for a way to address the traffic question, right? And I think that if you looked at the tier 1 study, the tier 1 study had to fairly look at doing nothing, no options. That was one option. You do nothing. We don't build anything, we don't change anything. No action. That's one of the options. All the way to the expanding 231 right down the middle of Jasper and Huntingburg. That's an option. And then there was other, as you may remember when this started, there were lots of different routes that were going to Davies County, Orange County. There were multiple routes they were talking through. So they looked at a very broad spectrum of different options before they narrowed into a fewer options and now narrowed into a single option with a couple variations of it. And the preliminary report comes out that we will get to a final route sometime in the end of summer or fall. Piece of that. So, the question was, hey, look, so it wasn't the RDA. I think there's some misunderstandings. The RDA somehow, way, shape, or form, impacted or influenced the decisions that Luckinger was making, and that's not true. In fact, those are completely made separately between Luckinger following state and federal regulations with NDOT to get to the conclusion, and that's all based on empirical data.
They always say there's never a dumb question.
That's
So I've
right.
got 3 pages here. Do we have like a contract or an MOU or something in place to where these funds go and make sure they go to their proper place?
Yeah, so different than most organizations, but not private. The RDA has to follow the state laws,
Okay,
and that's why it has its public meetings. It is audited. It has not LWG. So those pieces all happen.
that
All
was
the
my
money, stuff, I'll understand that, and I don't remember exactly paid to the state for the contract.
For the contract at the final amount, the agreement was not more than 7 million. And we paid directly to NDOT 6,750,000.
That's right.
And the other 250,000 was used basically the cost of the running the RDA, because you do have audits, you do have, we have no staff, so you do have those expenses. So we paid 7 million in total. 6,750,000 went directly to NDOT. The other 250,000, and it was like a 5-year period on that tier 1 from start to finish.
I think Commissioner Suffolk, to put it in a nutshell too, the idea was that private raised about $3.5 million.
Yes.
The government entities raised $3.5 million, which came in. And it ended up that the private entities raised slightly more than that, I think $300,000
3.8.
before that. So, because the idea was that a contract not to exceed $7 million, how do you fund that? And so that's why we came up with a 50-50 split where the government entities, City of Jasper, City of Huntingburg, DuBois County funded 3.5 million. Private entities funded the other 3.5 million to fund that piece. So, in the meantime, the RDA has operated again, no staff in the ensuing 8 years on the balance of those dollars from the private funds that were.
Okay.
And so to your point, those statements, those financial statements all get put through and, are on the website, they're all distributed, they go to the State Board of Accounts, they're audited, they're reviewed. The RDA has passed every year its audit from the State Board of Accounts.
And that was another one of my questions about being an audit and the State Board of Accounts.
And those letters, I'm almost positive are all on the website too, that says, hey,
That's
here's the
public
reason,
access.
LWG, is the approved accounting company by the State Board of Accounts that the RDA pays for their audit. And then there's a letter that the State Board of Accounts submits that says, that we've reviewed the audited statements and the audit performed by LWG and approved the audit.
Bill, I would add, for Sharice's benefit, LWG, I believe, conducts the audits of every RDA in the state. Because you have to use a firm that is approved by the State Board of Accounts, I assume, to audit RDAs.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So I guess another question I had is what happens to the RDA if the Mid-States corridor is built? And I'm talking long-term. Are they gonna stay heavily involved?
That would be the decision of the member organizations. So if you looked at the, dozen or so other RDAs that are through the state, they do take on other projects if the member organizations so direct them to do so.
Right.
And those could be economic development, those could be other constructions, but those are member organizations' decisions about, what the RDA would do. In this instance, this RDA is Spencer County and Du Bois County. There are other RDAs that cover multiple counties and projects. The other thing that no RDA is going to take on a project without funding. So the member organizations would also have to decide, if they wanted to build a bridge or they wanted to take on an economic development project, how that project was going to get funded. And so there's not going to be a decision to move forward without funding for a project, and that funding would have to come back to presumably back to the member organizations to pursue those projects.
Ultimately, the RDA can't go rogue. You all, the councils, they control that.
So we have been in the talks, with the fellow commissioners, county council about the Highway 231. The RDA, will they be doing the negotiations along with our county council, the commissioners, the highway superintendent as to what our role is gonna be with that Highway 231 if we have to take it over?
Well, I would say this, Commissioner Stefano, the RDA wants to be an advocate. I mean, we're here, the RDA is existing because you created the RDA. So the RDA is an advocate and takes direction from the county, from the member organizations. Certainly up to this point, both during the Tier 1 study, during the Tier 2 study, and in at least these initial discussions about relinquishment, the RDA is working to support for the best outcome for Du Bois County. We live here too, right? And so we certainly want to make certain that the road, when completed, and the best possible options for the relinquishment of 231 benefits Du Bois County. And we've said that publicly, and INDOT has come in. We've asked INDOT, at request and say, hey, look, let's make certain that we're working through these questions about what relinquishment looks like, when relinquishment happens, what's in the best instance. That has not yet been decided by any of the member organizations, but we certainly have developed a strong relationship with INDOT, and with other government organizations in order to try to make certain that we do help the county and the city of Jasper and city of Huntingburg negotiate the best relinquishment agreement, because it will be an expensive agreement, but there are certainly opportunities for benefits, for that roadway. And those have been discussed about, when there's less traffic on the road, there'll be less maintenance on the road.
Right.
The less cost of improvement. It's still expensive to take on additional roadway. There's no doubt about that. But there are opportunities at this point, and maybe opportunities to continue in the future, in order to make sure that relinquishment is as favorable as possible for Du Bois County and for the city of Jasper and the city of Huntingburg.
Agreed.
again, I don't mean to keep butting in, Sharice, but from the RDA board's perspective, I mean, we're there, as Bill said, to be an advocate for what you all want. We should not be on point.
Can we have some respect for the speakers, please?
We should not be on point making decisions. You all need to be out front doing
Understand.
that, and
I
I
understand that.
know that's what you want to do, and that's what you should do. What we can do is come behind and advocate for that. The question of local skin in the game came up earlier. And, NDOT's original plan was, follow what happened at first, which was gonna be some local governmental money and local private sector money together for a local contribution. You all made it clear, you made it clear certainly to the RDA, you made it clear to NDOT that you didn't have the funds to do that. I don't think NDOT fully thought that through perhaps at point, but I will tell you, we reinforce that message and we reinforce it hard. But that's what we can do. We can reinforce, we can advocate, but we don't lead.
And I've had that discussion with NDOT and how important that is. We don't
Right.
have the funds, we don't have the equipment, we don't have the manpower. I mean, there's a lot that would go into Highway 231, and that's a big concern. And I've said that from the very beginning.
And I think to Chairman Schrader's position, a point, and that is that, NDOT has said that it's not going to seek funding, skin in the game funding from any of the public member agencies. So
Relinquishment's still out there, but in terms of construction costs.
that's right.
Right. You've answered. My next question is, how often does the RDA appoint new members?
Every 4 years.
4.
Yeah, so it's an 8-year initial term, and then every 4 years thereafter, they appoint members. So in 2022, members were appointed, the same board was reappointed. So that time period will be coming up again soon. And part of that question will depend on, what happens to the existence of the RDA, right? So presumably, that the RDA continues. And then we'll come back seeking input and approval of a slate of officers or slate of upstream board members, for the RDA again. So the last time this happened in 2022, we brought back and shared it with council, the proposed slate of directors for your approval.
But you all as commissioners make that decision. The council doesn't make that decision, you all make that decision.
I would expect that, given the length of time that some members have served, there'll be members that will be wish to be replaced, so that'll be a decision that this group of commissioners will decide along with, Jasper, Huntingburg, and Spencer County.
Right, not just us.
I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting to someone that the way that it was done initially was each unit picked a candidate, and then each unit as a whole agreed to the complete slate.
That's right.
So that's how it happened. Then for Mr. Schrader was our appointment. So if we are our selection to put into the pool, if he decided he didn't want to do it anymore and we're going to replace him with Commissioner Hostetter, for example, I'm sure he's looking forward to that. Can we do that unilaterally, or is it a requirement that all units must agree?
Well, eventually all units must agree on it, but I think you're right, Mr. Blessinger, that is what happened in the past, and that is that process was each of the member organizations, identified a candidate they wanted to sit on the board, and then a fifth that was, kind of generally acceptable to all.
I didn't know if that was just the practice or if it was required.
Yeah, that's not right, but it is required that all the member organizations approve the entire slate.
You got it. That makes sense.
Makes sense.
I didn't mean to
Makes sense.
point you.
That's all right. Politely declined.
Surprised. So the RDA meetings minutes are public,
They
correct?
are on the website too.
I know you've said that
Yeah.
before, but I wanted to ask
They
one
are.
more time.
They are, and I think just like any other board minutes, the RDA is required to meet quarterly, which it does. And the minutes are approved to the next meeting and then put on the website.
Okay.
So they're not put on the website until they're approved. So they're basically a quarter behind
Understand.
when they get on the website.
Right, I understand. I understand. I don't have any more questions at this point. I'm gonna turn it over to Nick, and Commissioner Blessinger for more questions, and then, I can do the closing.
I really don't have any questions. I was part of the commissioners when the RDA was formed and voted to form it. I was, I believe, on the council when we started the process of the study. So I'm pretty well understanding of what you guys do and why we have you.
Thank you. I did want to hand out, this is a letter, op-ed letter that was submitted earlier this week to Central Indiana. Piece, I'm not sure how far, but this is just from former Lieutenant Governor Shellstrom, who wanted to explain, and she has explained previously, kind of the history of her role with respect to the Blue Ribbon Panel and her understanding as a former state representative and Lieutenant Governor, how the project works, how this works through the system. I think it's important to understand that, that to the extent there's some concerns that there are smoky backdoor rooms being cut and deals thing, that a project like this, goes through a number of different processes. And in this instance, it's been around for a long time, trying to work its way through the system. Not something that was cooked up in the last, 5 years or 6 years, that we've had this problem with respect to traffic for a long time. Your predecessors have helped, try to resolve the problem. It's an expensive problem. It's a difficult problem. It's a problem that's going to have a large impact on DuBois County. There's no doubt about it.
Agreed.
The expectation is that it's also going to have a very large positive impact with respect to the infrastructure that will carry our community forward for the next 100 years. 231 is over 100 years old, and clearly it can no longer be upgraded in a way that can make it, usable and feasible with 20,000 cars. We are a victim of our own success. We are a very successful community. We are the envy of a lot of folks in the state of Indiana, and with that success, we're going to have additional infrastructure. No different than, building new water lines or sewer lines. A roadway is an additional infrastructure improvement that our community needs.
So my comments would be, first, the history that you've given of the project, how it was formed. I've heard it a bunch of times, and you didn't say anything that was inaccurate or not how I remember history either. So sometimes people don't agree with things you're saying or whatever, but I can say everything you said about the history, how we funded it, how we got to where we are today, seems completely in line. I think I also agree with you that if we withdraw, if the county council on the end of the month, they withdraw from the RDA, it doesn't stop the project. They're kind of two different things. And this isn't even really a question if we want the road, if the road is good or if the road isn't good. It's a question if DuBois County and the other member organizations feel it is, that the RDA is necessary or valuable moving forward. I mean, that's really the question we have to, I would say we have to deal with. So, and I think each person will search their own, whatever they search to make decisions and determine if the RDA is going to be valuable to us moving forward. So again, I don't know if the county council says we don't want the RDA or if they say we want to keep in it, doesn't make the road any more of a reality or not, I don't think necessarily. But my question is, and the reason I didn't want to sign the resolution to put pressure on the county council in any way was, one, it doesn't really do anything, it's not binding. And two is I'm not sure if the RDA provides the value that I think is necessary moving forward. Not about if I think the road is valuable or the road isn't valuable. I'm just trying to determine what that value is. One of the things that you've mentioned probably on Monday and probably here today just a little bit, is that you're doing work that if you didn't do it, the county would have to do it. And part of me thinks the county probably should be doing most of that work because we're the people in the hot seat that are directly accountable to people. And we're here every other week and people can come find us as they often do and discuss their thoughts with us. So part of me thinks you're probably right. If there's no RDA, maybe that's a little more something on our shoulders, but maybe that's the shoulders it should be on. So that's one of my thoughts. And when you talk about being an advocate for the county, I've never thought that Mr. Schrader or yourself ever had anything but good intentions for the county. I know that other people have mixed reviews about us and with you, but I've never felt that the people, most of the people, probably high 90% of the people opposed and for it, have the best intentions for the county in mind. It's not, I don't think there's any ill intent from anyone involved that I've talked to, or very few at least, I can say. So I guess one of my questions would be, why is the RDA better qualified to negotiate with NDOT, to talk to Lockmuir Group about bridges, relinquishment, over ramps, the location of which roads are dead-ended and those things? How is RDA more valuable, more qualified to do that than the county engineer, the county highway department, the county commissioners, county council, city councils, city executives? I guess that'd be my one question. I guess.
No, go right ahead.
Ted, you're absolutely right. We are not more qualified than your county engineers, you as commissioners, the council, to do those things. And we're not out there doing those things. You know, Bill had said it earlier that, you know, absent COVID, this thing would be done. And I say it could be done. The plan would be done. You know, and what we're asking for is another year to 18 months to finish it. And I understand when you say, you know, I don't know that we need the RDA. You don't need the RDA because you're going to have to be out on point on those things. But the advocacy part of this, I guess my question to you is, why would you not want as many voices in NDOT's ear advocating for what you all want? Because when this plan is done, and it'll be done whether the RDA is there or not, and it's submitted to Federal Highway, and by the way, the first Federal Highway record of decision came from the Biden administration. It did not, you know, people talk political, it came from the Biden administration. The second one obviously is going to come from the Trump administration. You know, why would you not want what is going to be the blueprint that this road, whenever it gets built, is going to follow? Once the Federal Highway approves that record of decision, my understanding is you can do some tweaking. The NDOT can do some tweaking, but you can't make mass changes here, or you got to go back to the process. So that blueprint's going to be followed. So before we get to the point of this tier 2 study being submitted for a final decision and record of decision from Federal Highway, we all as citizens of DuBois County want to make certain that we've gotten everything that we can get, the best we can get, whether you're for the road or not for the road. That we can help. But, you know, but we're not going to take the lead. We're going to follow your lead. We did that, you know, the whole intersection question. I would tell you that the RDA talked hard and talked pretty firm about why underpasses and overpasses are needed on every state highway. Had made any official changes, but you've heard them talk. I guess that was the council with the company. That they have incorporated some of those into theirs. Nothing official yet. But one of those is the South Street Highway. That has changed. And that has changed because you all made noise, and it's changed because as the RDA, we made noise, following your lead. That's an example of, I think, when you say, what can the RDA do going forward? That's what we do. And we've invested a lot of time. We do have good relationships with players. You all do too, but we're kind of in between them. And that's not what we're doing is different than what most RDAs do. Most RDAs are doing projects, building buildings, doing those things. I mean, but we're not, never once has anyone on that RDA board, we understand we work for you all. We're not gonna take your position. I have encouraged you guys to be as engaged as possible, because, I think it's critical, because we can't take that. We don't want them looking to us for that answer. We want them looking to you, and when you see that there's something that's, you don't like, if you let us know, we can help reinforce that message.
Yeah, I think the same way that when people have asked us about the road questions, we defer them to the NDOT because we can't speak for NDOT. In the same way, we can't speak for the county with respect to road closures or other pieces. Those are the county's decisions to make. Same for relinquishment. I will say that as to the Celestine High question, that was not a inexpensive decision to get NDOT to move in a different direction for an underpass, overpass to make that traffic flow better. To make sure cars and trucks and trailers weren't having to run a J-turn through that. That's a lot of dollars that got discussed. And I think the idea was that, we certainly expect to take direction from the county. We're not making decisions for the county. We're here to advocate for the county. Having sat, with NDOT for the last years and through these pieces, to Chairman Trader's position, and that is that, the idea is to make this the best possible from where this decision is going to get made for the ways that are happening, including relinquishment. We can't make the decision for relinquishment. That's clearly the county's decision, but we can certainly help guide you and advocate for this county, which is what the RDA wants to do. Obviously, just like the rest of you, we're going to live in this county and, drive in this road and, live with the final decision. And certainly, we don't have all those answers. But your county engineer and the city engineers and other people, have better understandings about how the county traffic works. And they should be working hand in hand to make sure we're getting the best decisions. And one of the things that from an advocacy standpoint that the RDA has done is ask NDOT to have additional meetings, with local officials, with local groups, businesses, citizens, to get the input, to make sure, and certainly on these intersections and roads that are going to be terminated or frontage roads, what's the right thing to do? What is happening? So not that we have the power to do that, but certainly to make certain we're getting all the input possible to make sure this final decision best reflects, the road we're going to live with for another 100 years.
Agree.
I would say this, Commissioner Buster, the other thing is that, for the $7 million that got invested initially, Governor Holcomb has $75 million still waiting to be applied to 231. I think that's a pretty good return on dollars. Secondly, if you think about it, even though we paid, that is we paid the RDA and public and private paid for the tier 1, this RDA in this county did not pay for tier 2. And tier 2 was a lot more expensive, and this project wouldn't have went forward if NDOT wouldn't agree to tier 2. So, where we are only based on our initial investment. And that's a pretty substantial gain, by this community to have the NDOT pick up the tab for tier 2.
Which I would add occurred under 2 commissioners ago and under the Holcomb administration. That decision was made by the Holcomb administration. That tells you that, again, all the talk about this is all politically driven. Those decisions were made not by the current administration, they were made by the prior administration. Both in Indianapolis and in Washington, D.C.
I did read that.
I don't think I have anything else.
Okay, I'm happy to answer it.
I know you are.
You guys, anything else?
No, I just, I think maybe if anything, we're guilty of not, not communicating with you what we really want. It's a two-way street, and maybe we should have reached out more, maybe ask for more transparency and maybe every quarter or every 6 months, give us a review of what's going on.
And we would be more than glad to do that.
Okay, and
Or if the RDA continues, and who's ever on board at that time, I'm sure we'd be more than glad to do that. So,
Yeah, absolutely, Mr. Russell. We want to answer the questions, and certainly also to the extent that there's things that the RDA can do on behalf of the member organizations, it should do that, right? I mean, that's the idea, that is to walk through these questions, because, I mean, INDOT's a big organization, this is a big project. There's a lot of questions, and you want to get all the information you can to make the best decision you can.
Right,
I don't have anything else for the RDA.
okay.
I don't either.
I just wanted to state again that I'm the one that has called this meeting. I need answers, questions. I do a lot of research to try to make these decisions, make the right decisions. As a commissioner, the RDA has not asked for any additional funds on this project. I understand that. I don't want to put more of a workload on my fellow commissioners, the county council. As far as doing this research, I feel like you are doing that for us. To keep us well informed as well would be great, as we've discussed. I try to make the right decision as a commissioner. I feel that I am swayed one way or the other, just like any other elected official, I'm sure. I have received calls, texts, emails concerning my decision, not only with this project, with another projects. I am concerned about the traffic flow. I've been talked to, not really accused of being not concerned about our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren. I want those children to go to college, and I want them to come back here. I think that's important. Like I said, I've received emails, been told that I need to take my position here as a commissioner seriously. I feel that I have. I've been told that I'm not the right person for this position. I've been told, and I don't have a backbone. I was elected to this position to make a decision. I know how I feel. I respect everyone else's opinion. I do. I've been in some of your positions as far as land, farms. I understand. The public is never going to agree/disagree with my decision, and I respect that. I do want to close by saying I want to make a motion to recommend continued participation in the Regional Development Authority and be presented to the Du Bois County Council. And that's where I stand.
Teresa, I respect that. And I think to make that decision in a room full of people that disagree with you proves that you do have a backbone. So
Thank you.
I will second your motion.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Are there any other issues to discuss with the motion?
You've answered all my questions. I appreciate that. And we can open it up to public comment at this point. Close the meeting and open it to public comment.
There was already a vote made.
We didn't make a vote yet. We first and second
I have a couple of questions.
for a vote.
We're not open for questions. We will give time for the public.
Public comment.
Monday you voted on it.
There was not a vote.
It was not a vote Monday.
There was no second on the motion. There was no business before the board.
So where we are now, so are you saying that you
There was no vote.
Do you want to take the vote now, or you're saying you want to have public comment and then vote on your?
Now,
Okay.
now.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Aye. The motion carries. Okay. Is there any other business from the board?
No, RDA was it.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I suppose we will open up for public comments. Anybody that would like to make a public comment? As usual, we have, there will be a 3-minute period allowed. If you need more time than that, then we will put you on a future commissioners meeting and you can talk.
Okay.
I have one.
Yes, please.
I'm gonna go first.
You have a copy? You want to pass it through?
Thank you for your time and your
Thank
service.
you for coming back. I appreciate
I know you.
Once it's settled down, you can just start.
Understood.
it.
Majority.
Yes.
You guys wanna hang around?
I think you guys should hang around.
This was a horrible.
Well, you've gotten through this year. Oh, it's
So, did you see how they respected us and they hang around?
All right, folks, let's have respect for the speaker, please. All right.
Thanks,
And
commissioners.
I'll tell you on Monday, I let some people go because I just want to let them go a little further, but there'll probably be a lot of people here, so please, when the bell goes
Understood.
off, please try to respect that. So please continue.
Understood. Thanks for listening to me today. I'm a citizen of Jasper, and half of what I have is now moved. I have a resolution that I would like to hand out to you that actually was the opposite of the one that you just mentioned, to recommend that the Du Bois County Council remove themselves. You've heard the RDA talk about being an advocate. Who are they an advocate for? They seem to be an advocate for the road. They don't seem to be an advocate for the citizenry. And right now, he said that, or we've heard talk of there being opposition. I think that needs to be flipped on its head. Is there support? According to our poll, only 16% of this county supports this project. And to think that the RDA that was established with the sole purpose of getting this road study done is not an affirmative decision that we want it built is a little misleading at best. So I think this vote today should be remembered as an affirmative vote for the highway by the commissioners. Now, if we can't have you recommend that the RDA board be dissolved, I have another resolution. Clearly, the RDA board is not representing the citizens. So I propose that we replace the board, or at least some appointments, with people who agree with 81% of the citizenry to have their voice be heard, not just road advocates. So I would like to pass this out. Your appointment was, or your suggestion for the slate was Mark.
Thank you.
He's listed in here specifically. And I think it might be appropriate to consider this resolution and to see if we can get an appointment by someone who is less financially connected to this project. That's all I have to say.
And what was your name for the record?
Brad Hooks.
Thank you, Brad.
I would like to ask a couple of questions here. My name is Jane Melchior, and I live in Jasper. I grew up here. I spent most of my life here. I am 81 years old, and I have fought every single study for this highway since this was the Donahue study that was going to bring I-69 through here. There has always been a preponderance, a huge number of people who have opposed. First of all, I-69 coming through here, then a west side bypass, then an east side bypass. then I-67, and now it's the Mid-States Corridor, and they have all found wide opposition. I have been at every meeting, no doubt. I have done research. I have done all kinds of outreach work. I've written letters, and I've spoken out. And this highway is not wanted by a whole lot of these people. And a couple of questions come to mind. What is the greater good of our community? Has anybody ever thought about that? And does bringing a new highway in here automatically make this everything peachy keen? And my second question is, what guarantees do we have about the future? And we have got absolutely none. And if anybody in here can predict that this highway is going to give you what you want, you're going to be really disappointed. I've been to Bloomington. I've been to Lexington, Kentucky. I've been through a lot of towns. Every huge city was once a small town. And once those interstates start coming through, things don't usually pan out. I've read a lot of research on this, but that's considered bias because it doesn't give people what they want. I was friends with Bud Durkholz in this county, and this was back in 1982. I don't have his direct quote here, but he said, "Who will speak for the land and its people?" And he said, we need a new land ethic, and we need to take the wishes of the people who live there rather than money as our benchmark. And this whole highway is plotted on making a bunch of money. I don't know where it's all going to come from. I don't have any guarantees on that. Stock market's down, climate change is happening, and we're looking at some rough times. And keeping our land in operation, keeping people on the land, and listening to the ordinary people who live here is, to me, what you people need to be doing. Not listening to a bunch of snake oil salesmen who come in and tell you what you need to have. I'm sorry, I'm calling it spade a spade. But anyway, thank you for hearing me out, but I feel like I had to speak. It's been bottled up for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Roger Dunn, County resident. Just a couple of topics that I want to address directly for the RDA. Some of the comments that were made by their attorney, that he said federal approval. There's been no federal approvals to build this road. There's been federal approvals, awareness of the process. So that comment that the feds are on board to build it, that's not on a solid foundation. The RDA renewal process, there's nothing in that code that states an automatic renewal. And maybe he's got some whispers from someone in Indianapolis. I've got shouts all over that in the legal terms of the RDA renewal process, they must renew or they must withdraw the members that I'm talking about, and that would be the county, not this board. The attorney fees for that RDA, as much as they want to say they've spent all the money, look, that's my taxpayer money. So we're arguing, I'm paying to argue with attorney. I can't do it in the courthouse, but I can do it all day long on the courthouse steps. He also stated Jasper, DuBois, Huntingburg, and Spencer have all said they're going to renew. None of them has, of this state, an official record to renew their membership in the RDA. When it comes to that renewal and how responsible the RDA is, until this group of people brought to the commissioners and council's attention earlier in the spring and over the winter, nobody has mentioned the renewals that they are passing the deadline of at least 18 months and not more than 12. So in essence, to me, that board is in derelict of their duty, and you're supporting that. They don't have the authority right now because they haven't followed the Indiana code of their responsibilities. And when it comes to the RDA negotiating instead of elected officials, as the gentleman that didn't identify himself said, well, the RDA, we're here to work behind. They are. So they're asserting the duties of you, the elected officials. In other words, never mind the man behind the curtain. We're gonna do what's right for the county, even though none of us are elected. And as far as the RDA meetings and their minutes public, all they publish in those minutes are financial statements. They do not allow public input. There is no record or invitation of participation by individuals allowed. The only comments we've been able to make there are after the meeting is closed and it's off the record, so they can say anything they want.
Time's up, Mr. Klein.
Calling for a public vote or a vote before public input is not transparency.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
You're welcome.
and thank you especially for standing up somewhat for the process.
I'll go. Sure.
Mark Notarski, county resident. Just a couple comments and then a question after that. The one comment that I have probably supersedes everything that's been talked about when it comes to safety and congestion, okay? Back in the Tier 1 study, when they first came out with what was to be the purpose and need of this Mid-States corridor was to improve the safety and congestion on existing 231 through Du Bois and Martin County. The Federal Highway Administration came back and said that does not qualify because there is not, the issue does not justify the purpose and need. That comment is in the data for the Tier 1 study, and I will be glad to make a copy of it and get it to each of you. Therefore, they changed the purpose and need to connectivity and time savings. Now, if you look at what they're doing in Tier 2 study, they're not even talking about time savings as part of the purpose and need. They're just stating connectivity. So they keep bringing up solving the problem of congestion and safety, and there is none. So that's the first comment. The second comment I found interesting was NDOT did not have the money to put towards a Tier 1 study, which was $7 million. But all of a sudden, once it got through, they all of a sudden had $15 million to continue with the Tier 2 study, which is just Du Bois County. That is not right. Finally, my question is, with this special meeting that was called, why was Kaiser and Schrader allowed to present and our groups were not allowed to present, but only allowed for public comments?
Yeah.
Please tell me.
I'm the one that called the special meeting to answer more of my questions. I didn't feel that I made things clear enough on Monday,
Well, you should have had.
nor did I have all my questions answered. With the texts, the emails, the phone calls that I've gotten this week, I felt like that there were more questions that I had.
Well, you should have also allowed us to come up for the commissioners to ask questions you have for us. And you didn't give us that opportunity, only in public comments. Thank you.
Mark, I would,
Our meetings always have public comment.
But that wasn't public comments by bringing Mark up.
No, this is the public comment period, which we have at the end of it, every meeting that we have.
Every time.
I know that. But you were, without us having up there and answering questions, you voted without us being able to give.
And on the Monday,
Answer questions.
on the
So,
Monday
I
agenda,
don't
I
agree.
believe it probably went the same way, Mark. All the items were voted on, and at the end of the
Obviously,
meeting,
it was
there's
a
a
railroad.
public, there's a
It
public
was a
meeting.
railroad decision.
Yeah.
They didn't like what they heard on Monday, so it's like, we're gonna have a meeting and bring in Dick
No,
and do it.
that
Yes.
is not the case, Mark.
Come on.
all right, Mark,
Enough.
We saw it.
Who else has comments?
and Mark, I'd like to make a comment to you before the next person comes up. if somebody would have asked, I don't think anybody on the board would have stopped. We didn't proactively say, Mark, would you like to make a presentation? But I asked her before the meeting started, I said, didn't anybody else want to come up and, be on the agenda? And you said nobody called in, nobody asked. So I do think it would have been available, but nobody on our side would have asked.
The agenda says RDA discussion. It did not have Mark Schrader or Bill Kaiser on here to speak.
Exactly.
So I
So what were we to say?
Just a discussion. I was just told to put.
Because they didn't come to you and ask to be put on the agenda.
Who told you that?
So it says discussion.
Cerise called and said, can we have a meeting?
I see your point. Okay, go ahead.
So, my name is Marissa Durkles. I am a resident of Jasper, Indiana, right outside city
I
limits.
didn't catch it.
Marissa Durkles. I am personally impacted by this. They likely won't take my home, but my father-in-law's home right next to us, walking distance, is eligible to be listed as a historic property. So right now, I can literally walk to my father-in-law's house, he can walk to ours. It could potentially go right in the middle of us, completely destroying the fabric of our community within our family. It could go on the other side. That still impacts our family because we have uncles on that side. I know this isn't a personal thing, but one of the things that has become more apparent within the last year is how you guys are gonna have to take over 231, which, was that in the tier 1 study? Was that clear?
Yeah.
That is a problem. If they're gonna do a tier 1 study and the county and the cities are gonna be required to take over 231, why was that cost and that result not in the tier 1 study? That's not right to me. Also, they say the land acquisition is gonna start maybe this fall. How can that happen before we even have an agreement on the relinquishment of 231? So we're buying up people's land before we even have an agreement on 231? That's not right. Does the tier 2 record of decision include relinquishing of 231? And will this cost be included in the tier 2 record of decision? Because it's already $3 billion, right? And then what's the cost to us as a city and a county to take over the road that they're just gonna get rid of? Okay, that's all I have to say.
Marissa, before you sit down, I would just say that the county, from everything I know and what I've heard from MDOT directly, is we never have to accept relinquishment of the road. We could negotiate with them. If the terms seem like it would be positive for the county, we could decide to, or we could decide not to. So whether.
Do we realistically think that they're gonna maintain 2 roads?
They said they won't.
They don't maintain it now.
They said they won't.
They're less likely to maintain it then when the mid-states border.
So, I mean, if your argument is, will they be bully and let the road deteriorate? I can't speak to that. What I can say is, the county will have to decide, if the road goes through, is it in the county's best interest to take that road over and try to find a way to pay for it, or is it in our best interest to leave it with the state of Indiana? So,
But with all of the agreements with the RDA and the record of decisions, like why has this just become an issue in the last couple of years? Because they did not tell us the complete truth.
What else on the
Transparency.
hi.
My name is Maggie Mary Stone. I'm a resident of Du Bois County. I just wanted to point out one issue that has not been raised today yet. It's my understanding that the RDA board would like to remain in existence. One of the reasons they would like to remain in existence, beyond just using their money to pay their lawyer, is to raise private dollars to help fund this road. This would be to exploit a loophole wherein the Indiana legislature's budget committee, which recently passed a law saying that road and bridge projects that are where the state's gonna spend over $250 million in a single county must go through budget committee, must have a hearing before the budget committee. If they're able to, if the RDA is able to raise private money, then they can bypass that step as well. That would have them they wouldn't need to get state approval because they wouldn't be spending that state money. That's bypassing not only the citizens of this council, citizens of this county, who are the most affected, but also the vast majority of Hoosiers across the state who oppose this road. We did a poll, we found out that it's not just people in this county that don't want this road, it's people across the state. They would much rather that their tax dollars go to fund the canceled road and bridge projects in their own communities. And we support them. Thank you.
It's me again, Margaret. My name is Julie Schutz. I'm from Jasper. I really wish that Mr. Kaiser and Mr. Schrader would not have left. But Mr. Schrader said that they can't make any decisions. All the decisions are you guys's. And then Mr. Kaiser said, but they can help work little deals or talk to these people. And then Mark Schrader says, well, we've got a good relationship with the players. Who are the players? Mm-hmm. I wish Mr. Schrader, who are the players? Are we talking about NDOT? Are we talking about Lockmiller Group? Are we talking about Governor Braun? Who are the players that we have such good relationships with?
Private donors.
Okay, so who are the players? But he left, so I can't ask him that, okay? And then he said a lot of this came up under Governor Holcomb and President Biden. Well, that's fine, but so Mark Messmer was also in under President Biden and Governor Holcomb. Mike Braun was in under Governor Holcomb and Joe Biden. I mean, we can't act like this was all just all of a sudden. This has been going on since Mark Messmer and Mike Braun took care of this in 2017 and got this RDA going. Okay, they can't play innocent. They started it. Okay, they started it. And now Senate Bill 1 they passed last year gave all the manufacturers the tax breaks that they don't have to pay as much in. So when we were going to build that wellness center for Jasper, it was like, ooh, put on the brakes. We can't do that now because now we're not going to have this money coming in. The sources of tax revenue we're not going to have. So then if we have to start paying to take care of that highway, the city street department's not going to have it. And you were talking about infrastructure things that are going to have to be done. We're already losing that tax from Senate Bill 1. And then if we're going to have to pay for a road, I mean, you're just adding all this extra cost on our, and I don't know, I don't want to be rude, but as far as I know, the RDA people are all very wealthy people, okay? I come from a household of $50,000 a year. Their ideas and what they think is best might be more towards their kind of friends. I'm a poor person. So who is the RDA representing? I feel like they are an extra layer of bureaucracy that we don't need. It's like you guys have to make the decisions. If NDOT or somebody wants to talk, they need to talk to your engineers, your county engineers. They're going to talk to somebody, but then by the time they come back and tell you what they said, is it the real story or does it get twisted like the telephone game? I'd rather you talk to them. Thank you, and have a great day.
Thank you, Julie.
Good afternoon, I'm Jason Fleck, resident of Du Bois County. I just recently moved here about a year ago, but my family has long ties here. I'm not impacted by this road and where I live or anything like that. But what I am impacted by is the RDA, which is a quasi-governmental institution. They're not accountable to the people at all. And that is your responsibility as our elected officials to represent us. I certainly don't see that today. The RDA, while it's written into law, there is a distinction between legal and constitutional, right? The gentleman referred about going rogue. Well, I believe they've been rogue the entire existence because they do not represent us nor do they seek our counsel. They didn't listen to our comments. We don't have comments at the RDA meetings. So where is our representation? It is with you folks. The expectation is you will represent us. As far as the workload, pawning it off at the RDA, you're going to get what you get. The expectation is that, again, you will represent us, your constituents, with the workload required to serve your citizens. If you're unable to do that, please step aside for somebody who will. The last thing I'd say is all these meetings, county commissioners, city council, whatever, it's not a court of law. People can lie to your face. I could be lying to your face. I encourage you to do your due diligence and double check everything. Apply critical thinking to everything that you hear. One of the lies of omission that the RDA is really good at is talk about time savings north and south. They will not study anything east and west. Why will they do that? Why will they not do that? That is because it will weaken their argument, right? So that's a lie of omission. Apply your critical thinking, not just what they say, what are they not saying? And please, for goodness sake, represent the people that elected you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna back him up. I wrote this before the meeting, so my name is Sheila Wendell. I want to comment on Bill Kaiser's claim that the RDA will do your job so that you won't have to, and that is what he said at the last meeting. You won't have to do this, and we'll do it for you. So he claims they are dealing with IDOT so you don't have to. I have a question for you. Did we elect the RDA? No, we elected you. How is appointing a group of people to the RDA who are 100% in bed with INDOT and special interest groups fair? Where is the voice of the reason that is questioning their tactics? They only give you their side and only tell you what they want you to hear. 81% of the citizens of Du Bois County are against this road. Do some of your representatives in this room think that we're stupid? That you know better for us than us? I find that very insulting. If you have read dossier, and shame on you if you have not. If you have read the dossier and still go along with the retaining of the RDA, then you are complicit. If you're against the will of the people, then I'm formally requesting that you resign your position immediately so we can put people in position of power that will. Do your damn job. Don't let the unelected RDA do your jobs for you. Kind of feeds on what you said at the beginning.
Mr. Schneider, do you have anything today?
No, sir.
County Auditor? Is there any business?
Nothing further to be done.
No.
We'll give somebody, I mean, we can close it up or we can give you your time. I don't want somebody to say they didn't have an opportunity.
You said we can't go twice, right?
You can call us if you like.
Fine.
Anybody care to make a motion to rescind the previous motion?
Yes. Yes. Can we be appropriate?
No.
All right, looks like there's no other public comments. We'll close the meeting. Thank you.